Every town has a ghost story that's been passed down through the generations. But what if those legends were true? My name is Miranda Young, and I'm the Ghost Biker. Hey everyone, happy Thursday night. Happy first week of March. Here we are, March 7th already. Excited to be moving in here to almost through the first quarter of the year. So I'm so excited to have you guys here with me tonight, and I am here at the historic Scott County Jail, and you are watching the Ghost Biker Garage. Usually a lot of the time I'm either here at the jail, but for the last little bit I've been over there at the farmhouse working on trying to get the new garage that we've moved into, hoping to get that set up here very, very soon. We'll be broadcasting from in there, so stay tuned for that. It's going to be just a little bit longer, but you know how it is whenever you're moving and trying to get settled in. So I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to have you all with me, and I'm so excited about tonight's guest. We're going to have a great discussion. So just want to say hello to everyone over here in the chat room. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. You know, we always try to say our hellos here at the start of the show so that we can get in with the guest. And, you know, especially when we're having deep discussions like we're going to be having tonight, I try to acknowledge everybody, but I don't like to, you know, interrupt our guest and that sort of thing while we're talking and get sidetracked. So just want to say hello to everyone. Hello to Susan Purcell. Thank you so much for joining us here. Miss Nancy Weems, Ronnie Anderson, Daryl Paulette from up in Virginia. Thank you all so much for watching. Kim Brady over in South Carolina. We're so glad you're here. Karan, if I said that wrong, I do apologize. Hello to Chad Thomas, Mr. James Brady. Wow, we got a lot of great people here. Todd and Carmela, thank you so much for watching. Mr. Bob Burnell, thank you for sharing the show out and allowing us a platform to be able to share on there. It's always good to see everybody on here. If you do have a question for tonight's guest, I do ask that if you wouldn't mind, please put your question all in capital letters. That way I don't miss it whenever I'm going through and moderating, pulling things up. Kind of a lot going on, so I want to make sure that I don't miss your questions. So if you don't mind, just put those on there. If you watched last week, we had Glider, Mr. Adam Burnett, on the show, and we talked about you know, investigating with disabilities, and he shared his inspirational story of how he doesn't let, you know, being in a wheelchair hold him back. It was a great episode. If you didn't catch that, go back, check it out. You can watch all the past episodes there on the Ghost Biker Garage, on the Ghost Biker Explorations YouTube page, as well as Facebook page there, and then also on www.ghostbikerexplorations.com. I do want to mention a couple interesting things that we've got going on here, and then we'll get to tonight's guest. I do want to share the Clover Hill Village Facebook page here. Got Mr. Daryl Paulette over there in the chat room. And, you know, if you watch the Ghost Biker Explorations Season 6, we did a live episode from Clover Hill Village. That was episode 4 of Season 6. And this place is amazing, and excited to announce that they are going to start offering paranormal investigations at this location. So that's something that is new. It's only been investigated by, I think, myself and maybe Daryl's team that he's with. I don't think anyone else has done that. And so they've worked with the Historical Society. And so they're able to bring this as a new location to be able to investigate. So if you're interested, it is in Appomattox, Virginia, which is, you know, such a historic location. Definitely go check that out. Ronnie? Yep, absolutely. So yeah, definitely go check that out and give their page a like and a follow. And if you want to investigate a location that hasn't been investigated, that is a new location on the scene, Clover Hill Village is definitely the place to do that. Go back, check out episode 4 of season 6. We will be re-releasing that as a produced episode. But if you go check out that live, you'll see some of the different episode or evidence that we captured there, and it was very, very cool location. So that is located in Appomattox, Virginia. Also, we did announce there at the historic Scott County Jail that we are going to be having our 3rd annual Blessing of the Bike events. That's going to be taking place on April 13th. So if you're a motorcycle rider and you're looking for something interesting to do to kick off the motorcycle season, I'm actually going to pull that up right here, the event page. But if you're looking for something cool to do to kick off the season, come by, check us out. It's going to be taking place from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern time on April 13th, 3rd annual on the 13th. We're excited about that. Got a food truck that we're going to be having here. And what's really cool about this is it is actually a roll-through bike blessing. So you don't have to worry about showing up at a specific time with your riders. All you have to do is show up, and you can do the roll-through bike blessing. Grab yourself a breakfast biscuit at the food truck and come in. If you've got some time, take a tour of the historic Scott County Jail and kick the 2024 riding season off right with a blessing of the bikes. And then also the other thing that I want to make sure to mention is if you are a teacher in the East Tennessee area, we have yet again partnered with the Tennessee State Museum, and we are offering a teacher workshop that's going to be taking place here in Scott County in Huntsville at the jail. It's actually going to be taking place at the community center across from the jail, and you will get a tour of the jail. We do have information on that. We only have 20 spots available. It is a free workshop, and it does count as part of your continuing education. So we will have more information posted on that, but there will only be 20 tickets available. So you're going to want to jump on that real quick. And I can see here, we've definitely got some spam people here. So sorry about that, Janet. I did just see that comment. Blocked that user. If hopefully that won't come up anymore during the show. All right. So want to go ahead and get to tonight's guests. I did have one part of tonight's show, Mr. Ron Yacovetti on my show. It was last year, right, kind of around this time, maybe a little bit later. So if you saw that show, we had a really great conversation about ITC. And so I wanted to definitely get Ron back on. And when I reached out to him, he was like, hey, we definitely got to have my team on there because they are doing amazing things here in the paranormal world. If you've been following them, if you've not, you're definitely going to want to. I'm going to go ahead and bring them on and let them talk about the Staticom project that they're working on because, ITC is something that's always fascinated me. And I know we've had some great conversations on that on some of the different shows that we've had. So I want to go ahead and bring on Tony and Cherie Rathman and Ron Yacovetti and Lourdes Gonzales.
Hey, Miranda.
Hello, Miranda. Hey, nice to be back.
Yes, so glad to have you all back. This is something I know you guys have been putting a lot out about this project you've been working on over the past year, and it's just completely fascinating. But before we get into that, why don't we go ahead and kind of talk about how you guys connected, because you all are essentially two different teams that's come together with this partnership to create Staticom.
Yeah, we're going to let Tony run with that because nobody tells it better, and he comes from the point of the team of all of us. He comes from the origins of it. We were brought in to that. And just to speak real quickly before he does, that was one of the reasons I was so happy to come back, because not only was this, for me and for people who've watched me on podcasts, one of the best shows I've been a part of. Compliments to you. You brought, I think, a lot of good stuff out of the discussion. But I was excited to come back with the other three people sitting around me here. Because this thing we're doing now, this Staticom thing, The team that you're looking at, and Tony will explain its history, has no weak link. We are a unified front. These are three of the best people that I am extremely fortunate to be a part of my personal and passionate side of my life. So
how did we meet? Well, we were aware of Ron and Lourdes and some of the things they were doing. And then Cherie and I and Chris and Audra, who were the original join to the Entity Voices Paranormal Investigation team, we started a Monday night show called Entity Voices Paranormal Evidence, where we would display evidence from investigators who had captured some really great stuff, and we'd discuss it. We'd figure out what we thought maybe it was, how it was captured, run through every aspect of what clips they were showing us. Mm-hmm. Well, then Chris and Audra, who used to live here in Phoenix, just a couple miles away, actually, let us know that they were moving to North Carolina. And wait, hold on.
Yeah,
we invited Ron and Lourdes on as guests, and it was a great show. They showed some fantastic stuff. It was a great discussion, and that's where the connection started to begin. Then later, Chris and Audra said, "Hey, we're moving. We're not going to be around for the next show or 2 or 3. I don't even remember. It was 2 at least." And we looked back, and I said, you know what? Ron and Lourdes were great to communicate with. What if we asked them if they'd be willing to fill in on the co-host panel until Chris and Audra are available again? They said yes. And I think it was like 2 weeks, maybe 3. I don't remember. But then when Chris and Audra got settled and set up, Chris and I were talking, and then we had a conversation with all 4 of us and said, these were great shows. What do you think about bringing Ron and Lourdes onto the team permanently for every show? And, it took us about 2 seconds and said, yeah, let's do it. So we did. And they became part of the EVPE team. Mm-hmm. And then, communicating every Monday night, throwing ideas back and forth. I mean, Cherie and I built spirit boxes for 12 years. Ron and Lourdes were working on something which we knew of but weren't real familiar with, but we'd heard them talk about DRV, there's Chris, or direct radio voice. Well, then Ron and Lourdes were going to come out by us to visit because we had the old Phelps Dodge Hospital. And a couple weeks before they were buying their ticket to come out, the hospital got sold. And I said, I'm sorry, we don't have it anymore. And so they said, well, come out by us. So we did. We did a 4-mansion tour in 4 days. We got to experience 4 days of direct radio voice. And I said, explain to me how this works. You're getting full sentences. There's no background noise. There's no static. Explain this to me, how this works. So he did. And then Cherie and I are like, we love this. Can we help you develop this? And luckily, Ron and Lourdes are like, yep, we sure will. And then as the years went by, here we are with Staticom today.
Yeah.
Wow.
Staticom was
And
born.
And that for us too, how to come on board and help develop this, but for us was also literally a 2-second decision, because what he didn't tell you, and he usually says it, but I love being the one to say this actually. He built amazing spirit boxes for 12 years, never sold one. He was genuinely always about the research. Wow. We loved that. With nothing to gain, nothing in it for them, a selfless way to carry yourself, they treated us with utmost respect and consideration from day one. It didn't matter if we had something to offer to them or not. That's just how they treated us. So when it came to that part, I'm going, all right, well, they do brilliant work. These are fantastic people. He's got years dedicated purely to doing research, not clicks, likes, and follows.
Yes.
So that was a 2-second decision for us also. And I will tell you right now that what we're doing, and Lourdes and I had made some great achievements and accomplishments with direct radio voice, bringing it back. It would not be where it is right now if it was still just us and it didn't include them.
Right.
Because when they got on board, you want to talk about You take a supplement, you put something in your car to make it run better, and you go, I think it's working. We knew it was working.
It sped up the process. It went like on turbo boost.
Yeah, we knew it was
and the
working.
connection was instantaneous, right? From the first time we were guests, it was just a great connection from the very beginning.
Well, and I've got to say, I'm going to pull up. I pulled this up earlier. Entity Voices, your show that you guys do, and that's on what is it? UNX or UNX?
Yes,
UNX Network.
UNX, yeah. And I've been a guest on there a couple times. My business partner, Dr. Sumner's been on there,
He's awesome.
and it's such a great show that you guys do. As far as I love where people are able to showcase their evidence, and you guys really take a good hard look into that evidence. I know some of it that I showed. We were looking at ways to essentially kind of debunk in a way or to explain.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I love about your show is it takes a critical look, but it also highlights this evidence as well that people are putting out.
Right, because we don't poo-poo on people's evidence. We don't do that. We're not those harsh people trying to break your evidence apart.
No.
We don't do that.
Yeah, and if something was that subpar, in our opinion, they wouldn't be on the show to begin with.
Right.
That's
Correct.
right. That's right.
And
so can folks watch the past episodes on your YouTube channel, or do they see that on UNX?
Both.
Yeah, we have it. It's on Facebook. It's on YouTube. I think it's even on Twitch. But then, of course, the entire UNX network, it's broadcast on their channels as well. So, yeah, it can be viewed in any of those locations, as well as our own Facebook pages. It gets shared all over the place.
Wonderful. So, to kind of get in for people that may not know what ITC and DRV is, can we kind of give sort of a brief description of what that is and how that's used in the paranormal?
Well, ITC is definitely all of us. That's actually one of the things that we loved also that Tony brings to the table is he's somebody who built boxes. So we know how they work. We understand it. We've studied aspects of sound and everything else too, and frequency, but he's built them. So when somebody like that, who built incredibly quiet, efficient running boxes, says, I haven't turned one on in 2 years, that's profound to me because he owns them. He built them and he still hasn't done that. He still does not use them anymore. This method to us was, I guess I'll use something that Tony can relate to and Cherie can relate to. It was like finding gold with a metal detector at the beach. It was there all along. It wasn't at the surface level because it wasn't on TV like the spirit boxes or ghost boxes, and nobody was doing direct radio voice. Yes, people have tried it. There may be some people who are messing with it, but on the main stage and what was getting all the attention, especially in paranormal media, nobody was doing it. It was the sweeping box because that was the modality that caught the spotlight and through Frank Sumption and everything, the spirit box. So I'm not a builder. And in looking for ways to contribute, I came across research from Dr. Annabelle Cardoso, who's one of the EVP ITC pioneers. I think the only surviving of the old guard. And I'm talking to people like Friedrich Jurgensen, Konstantin Radove, who pioneered direct radio voice and EVP work. Ernst Sinkowski, who came up with the term ITC, instrumental transcommunication. Marcella Bacci, who most famous for doing direct radio voice. So we have her blessing and endorsement, the four of us. Wow. But from her, I was mentored into this stuff, and we started doing direct radio voice. And we were amazed at just with pure white noise, without the sweep, without on a signal, what these people were getting. And I looked at her and went, how is nobody doing this? I don't know how long it takes to develop or figure out, but we're going to try, because if we can do that, there's no box I've ever seen that can do what this guy was doing with a vacuum tube radio. That was it, right? It wasn't all high tech with plasma discs and spring reverb. He was using an old vacuum tube. So we started doing it, and we started getting results. And then we were introduced to a software component from a gentleman named Keith Clark from Varanormal.com. We used it. We got away from it and went back to a more purist approach. Then we went back to it because we felt there was something there. When we went back, I took a real deep dive into what would probably be counterintuitive to most people who were trained in audio. Because I was not trying to produce Beyonce's next hit. Not for lack of trying, I just simply wasn't. But we were doing something different. And so I was trying every possibility to see we could yield things. And that was the rendition of direct radio voice that was starting to produce full sentences and a lot more of an efficacy to the method than we had experienced it.
Did you explain direct radio voice itself? It's just white noise in a barren channel using a radio, but not with the sweeping or the vocals. White noise, barren channel using a radio. That is what direct radio voice is.
Right.
Go ahead, Mike. Continue.
So, yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
We know each other. So that's essentially what it is. It was a vacant AM frequency, short, medium, or long wave. No sweeping, just a vacant static channel. And then we were using that, and then we did live filtration through software for a while. Then we got back, and then we went to the software thing again. And at that point, it's somewhere where the Rathmans got on board, and we started working with them, which was really good timing because one of the things that we came across was we had an experience at a location where the voice came in really fast, and it turned out at 50% slowdown, it sounded like it was my mother identifying herself and her mother by name coming through, but it was so fast in the moment I couldn't have possibly detected it. And also, if a human being, the vocal tract is not capable of speaking that fast. 50% slowed down sounded slower than I'm talking now. And I sounded intoxicated on the recording, but slowed down 50%. These voices did not sound the same. And I'm like, we need to figure out how to slow this down in real time. Even pioneers like Radove said, these voices come in faster than people can speak or detect. So I call Team Rathman. Here's what I'm trying to do. I've tried these things, these certain components. I'm not seeing what I want to see from it. Of course, he finds it.
Like, really? Like, in a couple of days?
Didn't take him too long. I imagine he slept and ate all in the same place. I'm not sure. But he finds it. And then now we're slowing down the vocals in real time. And those are two of the things that we claim, even now to date with Staticom, to be unique for, is that we're not only filtering and doing everything people do in review in real time to have dialogue,
right,
but we're the first ones to slow down live white noise in real time, to my knowledge. And that's made a huge, huge difference.
Yeah, because I mean, I would imagine we miss a whole lot just because, you know, when you're sitting there and trying to hear it, because sometimes it's hard to hear it just in the moment anyways, but when it's coming through really fast, I would imagine we do miss a lot.
And what do people do when they take evidence home? What do? They denoise
the
it.
Best and they have the best intentions, but
and they slow it down.
Yeah,
they denoise, amplify, and slow it down. So we're doing all that in real time, so we can actually have conversations, and it's yielded success for us so far.
Plus, the other advantage to Staticom, like Ron was saying, that all of that that fine tuning of it is all done live. We don't have to mess with it. We don't have to touch it. We don't have to make adjustments. Well, sometimes we make adjustments, but they're not attuned to any of those adjustments. But the other good part is that, like he was saying, the two-way communication can be facilitated. You can get an answer and you can turn around and ask another question based on the information that you heard. And then that is what ITC was truly designed to do, be two-way communication. You know, when it actually, you can experience that. I mean, we're going to show some clips tonight, but when you can experience that live in like the TDSI that Ron and Lourdes do on the East Coast, Cherie and I do on the West Coast, it's mind-blowing. It really is.
And so now we got rid of the radio. There is no radio, and what we use is a white noise generator generating white noise in real time. So that's how it became Staticom.
Yeah, Tony, do you want to tell the two instances, Tony, of how that?
Sure. So as Ron was saying, they were in a zinc mine, and they had other investigators with them with their spirit boxes and even their cell phones. When they got 30-some feet underground, the cell phone signal died. People using spirit boxes did not receive any voices because radio waves are blocked. But DRV at that time was still able to get voices come through. So I'm not sure if we had even discussed that yet at this point, but Cherie and I were doing a demonstration at the Superstition Museum. And when I was getting the World Band radio out to plug it in to use the white noise on a shortwave or long wave frequency, I don't remember what I was using, but I noticed that there was a sleep machine in there. And the sleep machine had a setting for just white noise. And I thought, wow, wonder if that would work. Well, I had an audience of about maybe 30 people, and I tried it. And guess what? It worked. Not only did I get my response, but the live noise that was coming out of the sleep machine was on a computer chip, and it was just a recording of white noise. So it would circulate and replay every 3 seconds. Now, when you listen to it, you'd never know that. But when my response got embedded onto the chip in there, that answer would repeat now every 3 seconds. So I went back to our team and said, hey, here's what I did. And luckily, Cherie recorded it. So I actually showed them. And they said, okay, what do we do? And I said, let's get a white noise generator and get this radio out of there. Let's take that low-hanging fruit from the academia side, from the scientific side, and remove anyone saying we're picking up stray radio waves. And that's what happened.
Wonderful, the fact that somebody like Cherie is involved at a lot of these events, because some people would go, I should have recorded it, but not with Cherie.
That's
She
my
captured
job.
everything. And that's in the docuseries, the 3-part docuseries, Knowingly Talking to the Unknown, which is on Paraflix. It's in one of the episodes because she captured it.
Right.
And the story is incredible to hear. It's pretty impressive. I was joking. I think it's ballsy to do that in front of an audience. At home, yeah, sure, you're experimenting. In front of an audience, you fall on your face? No, he didn't care. He said he felt something, he did it. But to tell the story on camera for the docuseries would be one thing. But we can see it when it unfolded, and it's incredible. And it was you could see in his face that he knew something was happening here. The breakthrough was coming through his cheeks.
Right.
Mm-hmm. He's not sure whether if it's going to work.
I had no idea.
Oh my God.
I had no idea. But, in 14 years of doing paranormal investigation, I would say 95 or more % of most of the captures that we had, at least video ones, was because of my wife. If she didn't always have that camera running and filming, I wouldn't be able to show half the stuff. And that was a good example, again, where she caught it and we were able to show it in the docuseries.
Yeah. I know you have clips you show tonight. If I want to address one other thing, because Tony mentioned something that's very important. One of the things that we've done collectively and in unison is try to really address, so we don't fool ourselves, anything that could be considered low-hanging fruit for the cynical. And the two main things that ITC gets hit with on the bullseye for the regular basis is radio leakage or bleed through, right? So from the zinc mine thing, and then from what Tony did with the sleep machine, which does not receive a signal, and it's technically not supposed to record, doesn't have a mic.
Right.
From those two instances, he goes, maybe we should try a generator that makes live white noise and not have a radio. Because if we can do the same thing, we take that off the table. Then we can be cynical about that anymore. So that's one. The only other thing we get, and we put our time in to address this, is that some people will say that because white noise is random, that you're hearing or discerning patterns in the white noise that are warbles and artifacts that you're mistaking for speech.
Right.
Possibility, not on the scale to the degree with the amount of stuff that we get, with the clarity, timing, and relevance of what we get. But the other thing that we're really stressing here too is that they say that because you can discern patterns in randomness, and white noise is random. First of all, when they say we can discern patterns, they're appealing to our intellect. Because that's how we communicate. When we hear sounds assembled that form words and phrases and things that we recognize as language, we don't hear the cat meow and go, oh, he wants the car keys. Right? He's making sounds. So we know and identify. So it's speaking to our intellect, saying we discern the pattern. The other thing is that the fact that this not only sounds, and we've had audio engineers compare it to consonants, vowels, diphthongs, tonal depth, and it is identical
Right.
with speech. To that, we feel it's deterministic.
Mhm.
But people say random, and we really now all try not to use this word in anything we do. They say random because that's what we say. It's an empty drawer. We say that when we can't model or calculate something in the moment. So we say it's random. But there's quantum fields, electromagnetic energies or fields, are charged ions from the sun. There's a variety of things. The fact that it's intentional speech that we identify. So it's not fundamentally random. What it is it's computationally irreducible. At the moment, it's not possible to calculate all those factors. So they say, oh, it's just random, and there's always a chance you're going to hear something. So we take that off the table too. So now when you play clips for the audience tonight, they'll understand this is white noise with no data. There is no possibility that random discernment's creating the stuff that you're about to hear.
Correct.
So what is white noise exactly?
That's a Tony question.
Yep.
White noise is basically every sound the human ear can pick up. So everything from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz or 20 kilohertz. The thing about it, though, is that whether it's pulled off a radio or generated live from a white noise generator, every frequency in that band across the board is at the same level. It's got a frequency of,
spectral frequency of 1.
Thank you. Sorry, I drew a blank. A spectral frequency of 1, meaning that it's flat. They're all at the same level. Not one is overpowering another. That's why you don't hear any of the individual sound happening. It's just that shh sound. So then the next question people always ask is, oh, what frequency do the voices come in at? They are all over the boards, which is the other reason we use the whole broadband white noise spectrum, because we never know where they're going to come in. They can come in at 200 hertz on one. They can come at 2,500 hertz on another, and they can vary throughout the entire conversation. Even the same voice can vary at what frequency it comes in at. Okay. So that was the basis for really elevating Staticom, was A, to remove that radio, B, to use something that cannot pick up radio waves, cannot pick up walkie-talkies, cell phones, satellite, nothing. It does not literally have the ability to do that. So it again facilitates the ability of when a voice comes through, where did that come from? Audio data has no voice data in it at all. It is barren of voice data, is void of words, syllables, anything that would constitute speech. So technically, those voices should not be there, but they are.
I love that, and it's a blank canvas by using that as just using the white noise generator. So my next question then, and I see we've got a lot of comments and questions over here that we'll get to here in a second, and also play in the clips. Why do people believe, or why do you believe that the spirits use this white noise to communicate? I mean, does it aid in that communication in some way? Why is that a good medium for spirit communication?
I think Tony's last answer was a great part of the answer to this question. That's every frequency we can hear. And we've asked before, you use pink noise, purple, brown, whatever. Those are all constituent parts of white noise, which encompasses all of it. So we do that because we only know what we're able to receive. And we can look at data that shows us maybe it came in at this range this time or other time. But we don't have like a channel or a phone number, let's say. So we avail ourselves, and I guess to some extent, whoever's coming through, the entire spectrum of what we can hear, because we don't know with any predictive modeling where they're going to originate. We just know that this comes through. What we believe is what's happening. And we think this is the same theoretical way that the ghost boxes work, except that they have a shortness or a brevity to the messages because they're using the white noise available to them between when they land and vocal fragments and stuff. They're not actually manipulating. You'd have to be like a crackhead and crazy trying to put syllables together like someone playing Scrabble on cocaine, trying to put letters and consonants and vowels and phonemes. So we don't think that's what they're doing. We think the same principle for ours is that it's what's called stochastic resonance. Any frequency that matches one within the whole band of white noise, and those two will resonate with each other and get louder, so you have an increase of amplitude. Now go back to what Tony said, equal amplitude to the spectral frequency of one. This elevates them. So now there's a variance in it. And then, as Tony always explains, and then what we do with the filtration of Staticom in real time is we're lopping off the noise floor and everything below where the resonance took it up.
Right.
So we're left at the end just with the words. But even with the ghost boxes, we feel like that's what happens. You hear a sweep. You want to explain? You explain it. How does it sound with when the ghost boxes use the white noise and the resonance?
Oh, well, when I heard voices through spirit boxes, I always noticed that I never heard it within the vocal fragments. It was always above or below the sweep. So we believe wherever it resonates is why it sounds so loud that it replaces the sweep, or you just hear it underneath. And if you have good listening, you can hear those low. So that's what we believe, that's how that happens.
So they're using the white noise in both models, same thing, but the sweeping shortens the messages. They may be getting longer messages or just as long as what we're getting, but the sweep we feel is truncating it. They're not getting to hear.
Correct, because they don't have access to the white noise any length of time. I mean, a spirit box will sweep between 100 to 300
there you go.
Milliseconds per minute. That's too fast. That's why we believe that spirit boxes, you get a one-word answer, 2, 3 if you're lucky. But it's all based on what we believe now to be how much white noise is available. But the other thing that they were talking about is that elevation, a very simple example is like if you had a bee buzzing by your head a foot from it, that sound versus the sound of the entire hive buzzing a foot from your head. Same sound, but that gets elevated. So when that happens, only the frequencies that get elevated are the ones that overlap. Whatever frequency they're using on top of the white noise base, that gets elevated. But the entire rest of the white noise spectrum stays at the level it was always at. So like Ron was saying, then we lop off everything under that, and you only hear the voice.
And that actually really makes a lot of sense to me with that. One being, I'm an artist, and thinking of this in the perspective of color, and thinking of the different colors of sound, like you said, the pink noise, green noise, brown noise, all of that combined to white noise, which, when we're dealing with shadow figures and dealing with other things from the visual perspective, it makes sense why things are the way they are, because it's all the colors combined. So that makes sense to me, even though I'm probably not explaining it right as to why.
No, that makes sense.
And then of course with the spirit boxes, because it is jumping frequencies so quick, if they're using that and they're speaking on that frequency, which would essentially, you don't know where it's coming in, that makes sense that it would cut it off whenever. Yeah, that's wow. It just light bulb moment for me there.
And because it's like if someone's talking to you, but they're moving, so they're talking to you, you don't get the whole thing because it's like the same thing.
And I remember people got upset when the SB11 came out because of the SB7 had the numeric display for the channels, and they go, well, if a voice is always coming through at the same frequency, I mean, I don't know how you follow that with your eyes. That's like having cheerleaders for ice hockey. And it's like, it's just too
Please
fast.
don't touch me in the face.
But they were upset that they couldn't see the numbers because they were looking for where it would always come in. So that's interesting, because if it's gaps between the sweep, or if they're coming in at a given time at a certain frequency, that might be the trend that they're speaking to, that they weren't able to see anymore. But I think what Tony said is spot on correct. They're not availed the noise long enough. If we try to make it akin to us speaking, it's like if your microphone kept cutting out, right? So maybe there's more to the sentence than we're hearing, but you don't get it all.
You don't get the full message.
Correct.
Well, I know one thing I've noticed when I get EVPs, and I'm talking about just either EVPs when doing a straight EVP session or listening to it, because I listen with my headphones a lot to try to listen in real time to possibly have that back and forth conversation. I've noticed anytime that I get an EVP, or most times anyways, there's like a pop that it's almost like it sounds like it's popping through, and sometimes they'll sound like they're near you, but yet it has a far away sound. And I'm just talking from my experience. I've noticed that there's always a pop on mine.
We've had that.
You are absolutely correct. And Tesla said, if you want to understand the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Well, the funny part here is that white noise is exactly those three things. Yep. Energy, frequency, and vibration. So it facilitates well from that standpoint, and then to the stochastic resonance and the way that we think it's working. But if you think about the fact, and I saw somebody ask this in the questions, but he was saying the male voice is at 100 to 120 hertz. Does it come in the same? No, it doesn't, because they have no throat right there. They have no throat. They have no larynx. They're not producing physical sound waves. They are literally setting the frequency and the tone of the information with the energy behind it to overlap the white noise we're using as the base. And the Staticom doesn't do something magical or mystical or give us any strange EVP or mystical powers. All it does is translate that message into a form that our own physical senses can interpret.
Perfect. Yeah, and if you also, real quick, if you want to put up the question one before that from Bernard, because it's a good question. Yeah. So the answer to that is no, and the reason that is because of the system we're using is closed. It cannot receive a cell signal or radio signal, a television signal from a frequency division multiplex. It's not. Any of that is not accessible to our system or from our system. So it's literally a generator on a white noise. It's closed circuit through an interface that goes through the computer, that goes through the speaker.
Right. The white noise doesn't go out in the ambient noise. And the ambient, it just doesn't. It's closed circuit.
But for something using radios or something that receives, that is a good plan, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is good. I mean, I don't know who he is, but that shows that he's looking at securing what he captures before he captures it, which is a great approach. Somebody asked me, have you ever tried running Staticom in a Faraday cage? I went, we've simulated or really mimicked the modality of a Faraday cage by having a closed circuit system that can't receive. Okay. Because we were in a geological Faraday cage in the mine, and then Tony created a theoretical Faraday cage with a sleep machine.
Right, which has no ability to pick up any wave, not radio, not satellite, nothing.
Right. So if we put it in a cage, that would be redundant. That would be like putting something in a Ziploc bag that goes in another Ziploc bag.
Right.
Exactly. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to start playing a few of the clips here. And if I've missed any questions, I'll make sure I look through and get those back here in a second. So the first clip, let me get this pulled up.
Is this
here.
This we don't care what order, we're not picky, but the one we were going to.
Yep. Okay. So what I'm going to do with these clips is I'm going to tell you, I'm going to pull it up on the screen and I'm going to tell you which one it is, but I want you guys to set it up first because I want to make sure that, everyone is kind of on that same level of what we're kind of, looking for. So, but don't necessarily give it away. Yeah.
Yeah. If we can with this first one,
mm-hmm.
I want to set it up afterwards.
Okay. Sure.
Because the story of even how we revealed it amongst each other was funny, but we did it for a reason.
Okay. Let me.
Hey, Larry Eisler. What's up? Paraflix guy. Yep. Respected investigator. Appreciate him showing up.
Okay. So there may be a delay, but let me.
Not hearing it.
Were you able to hear that?
Yeah, it came up with it. You could maybe play it one more time.
Yes.
If it goes louder, that'd be great. If not, it's fine.
Let's see here. I'm going to make sure there's nothing obstructing the sound.
Cool. So if anybody watching read more than just the one annotated word that it said, at the top of the screen, there was a date given. So what happened is that we watched a podcast that Tony appeared on a couple of days ago, and then we were in our YouTube channel to watch it. Yeah, there it goes. So then I was looking at like all the stuff we had uploaded, and I was like, wow, you know what? We should watch some of the old ones. So I watched this clip that was recorded January 25th, 2020.
It was a 5-minute clip.
It was a 5-minute clip. And somewhere like 1 minute and 8 seconds, she goes, can you go back?
That's not what happened.
I'm trying to shorten it, but go ahead.
Sure. No,
Tell the
go
long
ahead.
version.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Tell the story.
You ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You got it.
Well, I heard something after that 1 minute mark, but I didn't want to tell him because I know he wanted to watch, the whole thing. Not realizing it was freaking 5 minutes. I had to sit there for another 4 minutes, watch the whole thing, and then I told him, now go back and listen to this part.
Yes. So, and that's exactly what happened. She's not wrong, but I was shortening it. Sorry. So we go back, and she goes, I think I hear Staticom. I went, are you sure? So we listened to it again. When it's on the TV, let me put it on the computer, and I'll download it, and I'll actually listen to the audio, headphones or whatever. And then it was undeniable. I went, that's the voice is saying Staticom. So I sent it to Tony and Cherie. I went, you need to watch this and then call me. And they're listening to it because we have gotten the voices in Staticom very clear these days. This, you can hear a little crackling and popping of the noise.
It doesn't have the clarity that we have now.
So they're between each other going, why does he have that noise in there? I don't understand. So I said, this was recorded recently, but not like today. It was recorded in January. And they go, oh, all right. So Tony goes, it was the first version of Staticom 1.0. I went, well, no, it wasn't recorded this year. And he goes, wait, what? I went, it was recorded in January of 2020.
Wow.
We didn't start using the name Staticom till 3 years and some months after this was recorded. We didn't even have that name yet. Now
we didn't even have the software yet.
Right.
All we were using was that thing you see right there, that radio right there. That's all we were using. And a portal. The portal.
We ran it through a little bit of reverb, right? And a little noise gate and a reverb are the only two things on the portal. So that's why it sounded like that. So we have a whole philosophy of mind called analytic idealism. It's a whole other episode to get into a lot of that. But essentially, reality is mental. And we believe that somebody had to have come up with the name at some point to contribute to universal phenomenal conscious of which we are all connected. And then that's how it was able to come back to us. We are not leaning into the idea of prophecy with this because we feel like that's somewhat of a convenient fiction to say that, it was a prophetic thing, but because we can't support it in any way empirically. It's just, there's no explanatory power behind it other than, well, somebody knew it was coming. So we're not leaning in the prophecy direction as far as explaining it goes. But, and I guess Tony and Cherie should, speak to their take on it too, because we totally misled them in sharing it, because I wanted to see if he heard the word as clear as we did first. And then if they heard it, then I wanted to tell them how long ago it was recorded.
Which we did heard it. It's very clear, except for, the crackling noise in the background.
The background noise. And I think one of the first things I said to Cherie, I'm like, oh, it's a cool clip. But I said, I know we have much clearer Staticom.
We're already arguing.
And she's like, yeah, but you can hear it. I said, I agree. You can hear it. So then we called Ron and I said, is this, the version of Staticom before the upgrade?
The original one.
And he goes, well, it was recorded in January. And I said, okay, yeah, that would have been
last month.
But I'm still thinking it's not that clear. And then he says January of 2020. And I just went, what? So I'm thinking back when they were on EVPE, that was 2021.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we weren't even communicating.
We don't even know them.
Well, we knew of
We
them,
knew
but
of
we
them,
did
but
not know
yes,
them.
Yes.
So not only were they not where they're at, or the four of us are at in this process, but the name that we're using today for the program was spoken. And like Ron said, we don't lean on prophecy that they gave us future information 4 years ago that they knew it was going to happen. What we think, because where the name originated from is from a friend of mine. He gave us permission when he heard how the method worked. He said, please, I'd be honored if you used it. But we're thinking he may have come, I don't know what year he came up with. I actually sent him a message based on this clip. When did you come up with that name? So hopefully it's, if it's prior to 2020 or even early in 2020, well, this was January, so it had to be prior.
Yeah.
But anyway, then that explains the analytical idealism, that the name was already out there in the collective unconscious, and it just came forward. But anyway, so then we started running through. Wait a minute, you weren't even doing the method of DRV yet. You were doing just the boombox, listening to static, just static, and yet the name came through. So it was mind blowing.
Yes.
It really
Yeah.
The method of
It was
direct radio
it was
voice
DRV
was
still,
being done,
but yeah, it was being done, but it was in the infantile stages of it. It
we
was,
didn't have the software or anything. It was just
Right.
the pure
Yeah.
white noise from the barons. And then I was thinking about it. So let's say if Tony's friend came up with the name, and then Ron and I just started messing with the white noise. I'm thinking, as far as not being a prophecy, but perhaps them trying to give us a hint of you're in the right path. Keep doing what you're doing because there's something to this.
right.
Perhaps that may have been the message behind that. I mean,
It makes sense. We're trying to with this philosophy of mind that we're using, because it takes all the supernatural stuff and it makes it natural. Right. And I think that's why we lose the argument a lot of time with the skeptics of this field, because we're trying to paradoxically cram into a physicalist or materialist accepted explanation for it. At the same time, we're saying, in defiance of those laws, that it can't be measured or calculated by it. So of course we lose, because we're playing hockey stick with with the end of a mop at the bottom. We've got no power to do anything. So I think that's part of the problem. And then, according to this philosophy, reality is mental processes. The physical world is how we perceive what is out there. It's not actually a 3D world that we perceive and create consciousness in our head. And under that kind of an idea, space and time are both qualities of experience. And according to analytic idealism, experience is all we can ever know. Even something physical, you go, I can feel this bottle of water. It's hard. It's cold. Those are qualities. Those are experiences. You can't experience 5 hertz, right? You can't hand me 5 kilohertz. You can't hand me love, right? So qualitative experiences are not measurements. Those are quantitative. So time exists in as much as we can refer to it in the now, right? The past is something we remember. The future is something that we anticipate, but it's always in the now. Even if I say, remember a minute ago when I was talking about the past, it's already in the past. So it's always happening in the now, even when I go as short as seconds into the past. So it's not a construct that we think all of this stuff or reality is bound to. So when we get an answer, perhaps from maybe when the gentleman conceived the name, that might give us.
Because he was also working with white noise, and that's how he named it Staticom, because he was doing white noise work.
Right.
Okay. And that makes a lot of sense, really, to me. I mean, that would be a hard one to answer, because there's so many theories on who we're speaking with and what we're dealing with when it comes to the paranormal, whether it is a time slip or a dimensional thing or just spirits in the afterlife. I can see where that would be. well, honestly, I can't wait to hear what the guy working with it when he conceived that.
Yeah, we're looking for that too,
Right?
and that's part of the issue is that it's our natural tendency too, from what we've always known, to look at something like a time slip. In order to have a slip in time, you have to have time.
Mm-hmm.
And space-time is not an ontological primitive. It's not something that's primary to existence. We treat it like it is, but it's within consciousness. It's not a scaffolding upon which consciousness exists because it's experiential. And you can't have experience unless you're having a conscious experience. So you can't experience space relative to what you perceive or time if you don't have a conscious experience. So consciousness has to precede space and time as experiential things. So that's why we don't look at we're going to, but that's why we also kind of turned from the time slip idea of it as well.
Because we all start from the starting point of perception, which is a mental process. That's where we all start from there. So that's where we should start always, but we tend to mix it up. We put matter before mind. It's, Yeah,
that would be a whole other cool show to do, because that's one of the things that's as a collective, the four of us has found, and we've incorporated it when we lecture, is that ITC has always been electronics, gadgets, tech, circuitry, whatever. But we have a philosophy for the nature of reality as a substrate for all the ITC stuff that we explain in the communication clips that we share that makes it normal, not paranormal. And that's part of our platform in trying to make something out of this whole project.
Well, I was going to say, do you think that that's kind of part of the problem, is that we're always trying to apply our rules of the natural world to the supernatural world, which, I mean, sometimes it's not that there's not an answer. It's just that we either can't comprehend it or we just haven't found that yet.
Yeah.
Well, the biggest problem is trying to.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tony.
The biggest problem is trying to apply materialistic science to something that we don't necessarily understand, or that materialistic science cannot measure, cannot predict behavior. They cannot put it into a laboratory to measure it, define it, say what it's going to do. What Ron was explaining is that the analytical idealism literally is the shortest path between 2 points. Instead of us bumping up against walls saying, well, we don't know what that is, and then trying to figure out a way around it. If you make the paranormal normal and it's nature just doing its thing, we don't fight that. We are literally just saying this happens, and now we're saying here's our theory about how we believe it to be happening.
Right.
Perfectly said. Yeah, it's as a theory for reality, it's most parsimonious. It's the least amount of theoretical entities to explain reality, and something that people who always quote science will know, Occam's razor. The most simple and direct way to explain something is what you lean into is probable,
which comes closest to the truth.
Yes.
Yeah.
So physicalism, or materialist science, which is what's accepted, says that you have mind and you have matter. And what we say with analytic idealism is that all there is mind. Everything is mental processes. So there's one, and it allows for all those things. Somewhere along the way, and this is another whole other story, but we lost sight of the fact that what we describe something with, we identify with it. We go, hey, this is 5 pounds. This is not 5 pounds. 5 pounds is a description of the thing. It's not the thing itself.
Right. It's like, this is a fist. What happened to the fist now? It's not gone. It was never there. It was a doing. You experienced the doing. That's what happened.
It's a behavior of the field of subjectivity that's being observed. But we take the measurement, we identify like the fist, 10 hertz, 50 pounds as a thing. And it's not, it's a description of the thing, but we've replaced the thing with the description. It's like taking the territory out of the map. The map only means anything because of the lines and colors and everything it shows is pointing at something else. It's a representation of the thing. It's not the thing. If you put the map first, it doesn't mean anything. It's not referring to anything. So that's where we think science that everybody tries to adhere to is wrong, and where we lose the argument with the stuff that we call paranormal. But we're looking to hopefully inspire some thought on this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's play some more of those clips here. Let me get that queued up. So This one that I'm gonna queue up here is let's see. It says and Tony Rothman can see.
Tony, are we setting them up before or after? Because Tony's got the setup for that one.
Would you prefer to set them up after or
Mr. Rathman?
Yeah, go ahead and play it. I can explain it after.
And that's what I'll do on these. I'll go ahead and play them, and we can set it up after.
Cool.
Let me get that pulled up.
Yes, James Brady. Paranormal is normal to some of us. Damn right. We agree.
I agree, all of them.
Okay, so it's a real short clip, but a couple things to take notice of there. Again, broadband white noise being filtered. No audio, anything should be there. They used my first and last name. Excuse me. And then to make it even more understandable was we're in the Montgomery house, all six of us. Ron and Lourdes, Cherie and I, Chris and Audra. When we first got in there, we were setting up our equipment, and I looked up on the stairs, and I saw something move. And then I saw it just standing there. And Chris said to me, "You see something?" I said, "Yeah, there's a little girl standing on the platform between the two levels of stairs." He goes, "You can see her?" I said, "Yeah." Well, then we went outside, and I was staring up at the second story window, and I saw her just lean out, like poke her head through the window, look out, and then go back. And that never happens to me. I've never had that occur. So when we turned Staticom on, that's the message that came through.
I'm going to play that. I'm going to play that again right quick. I mean, that's incredibly clear.
Yeah.
Yep.
And relevant completely. Like you said, he saw.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The timing and relevance.
Yeah.
First and last name being used. I mean, you can't, there's no, and again, from a media source that no vocal data exists. I mean, it's mind blowing.
And the fact that it was his first time. So it was his first time experiencing it. And they wanted to give that message, you know?
Yeah. Do you find that that's kind of a common thing? That do you find that when you're dealing with this, that it almost seems like the spirits are, I'm trying to think of the way to ask the question, that they kind of respond in ways like that, of sort of almost like sort of re-saying the situation, or really doing things that are relevant to the situation that you're finding?
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think it was an acknowledgement, maybe even just to me, because I was still like, there's no way I saw that. There's no way I just saw what I just saw. I mean, we've captured stuff. I mean, 14 years of investigation, we've seen a lot. But a full color, full bodied apparition standing right in front of me, and I can see it with my own eyes, that hadn't happened before that night. And then to have that come through Staticom, you know, and if it just said something like, you know, he can see or he saw her, wouldn't have the same impact. The fact that it literally stated my first and last name, can see, you know, that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask my partner Lourdes now to answer a question for the audience here. What would you say is the most commonly heard word in Staticom history since we've been doing that, and even direct radio voice for that matter?
Rathman. Tony Rathman.
Yep. Oh my goodness, they say it all, we get it all the time.
All the time.
We get it here,
even in our sessions.
Yeah.
Like, he's not here. Go back to Arizona.
Look, Roger Martin's put it. That's right. Yes, and James Brady said first and last names are almost never happens. We've gotten all of our names at some point. I got Ron Yacovetti a couple times, which the living have a hard time with.
Yeah.
Cherie Rathman. Yeah.
Cherie Rathman has come through a lot, but Tony Rathman, especially the last name Rathman.
Rathman comes out.
Number one answer. If this was a Family Feud topic, that would be at the top. Trust me.
I love it. Let's see. I'm going to play this next one, and you all talk about that after I get that here. Sorry, things are kind of delayed when I'm... Okay.
No worries.
So who am I speaking with?
Okay, that was
Especially those
wild.
two last sentences
It got
were
clearer,
very clear. Yeah.
as it went on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To answer
That's
Bob
a
Burnell,
direct message to you, Ron. Take a nap. Because you
Yeah,
You never sleep, dude.
Exactly.
no doubt. No reverb. There is an EQ involved in the filtration process, but no reverb or effects.
Nope, none.
And the recording is done external. We can record right through, if you use something like OBS to broadcast it, we can record directly through OBS, both our microphones, so we get the questions and get Staticom direct. But typically when we record, like especially at a location like that, it's a recorder by the speaker. Because that's a huge part of what ITC communication. I remember they came out with the S-Box Ghost Box, and they were like, it records the whole sweep internal. So, it's just, you get a clean recording of the sweep. And I went,
It doesn't record the questions.
yeah, do they not know where the whole, it's not communication anymore. It's just,
the
it's
relevance
eavesdropping.
is gone. The timing and relevance to the question is gone because you don't have the question.
Right.
Yeah. That's what makes it. If I go, what's in my hand, and a voice on a box or anything says glasses, that's timing and relevance, and that's a dialogue. It's the odds are astronomical. That's coming through a radio at the moment I ask for it. But if all it records is glasses, that doesn't really that kills half of the explanatory power. You lose.
Right.
Yeah, you lose the relevance.
And that's part of what we also want to do with educating the field a little bit with this stuff, especially for stuff like that, because Tony's probably one of the most brilliant ghost box builders of our time. But because he was never at the market selling them, he may or may not be known, which is fine because he's going to be known for this now. He's clearly built his legacy as far as we're concerned.
He's going to be known for both, actually.
Yeah. But even when you look at sites that sell ghost boxes, they sell as an accessory a Faraday pouch. Right. And then people put the box in the pouch, and then they run a 3.5 millimeter wire out to an orbital speaker, and they just recreated the antenna that they disengaged by putting it in the pouch to begin with. And it's a radio. You're sweeping a radio. Why would you want, that's like putting feathers on the bottom of a lawnmower. It's not going to do what it's supposed to do.
Right. Well, and then the whole process becomes backwards because you bought a spirit box, which is a radio, but now you're trying to take the radio portion of it, which receives the waves, interprets them, lets you hear it, and remove that. So then if that's the case, why was it built that way? If you want to remove the radio signal, now I understand the concept, but if you think about the methodology behind it, it makes no sense. If you don't need the radio broadcast, then you just have white noise. Hello.
And there's no benefit of sweeping white noise because we know that the voices come in faster than we detect them most of the time. At times they do.
Right.
No benefit to sweeping it.
So that's important to us because that's axiomatic thinking. That's stuff that gets handed down. Oh, you get the pouch because you want to get rid of false positives. That's baby and bathwater all at the same time right there. Because you're killing your methodology. You bought a radio, you've made it not a radio. And then you got white noise, like Tony said, which is direct radio voice. And if you're sweeping it, there's no advantage to that. But this is what's out there to sell. So we have to see some kind of control over some educational element of the field. And I'm not saying we know everything by far,
Right.
We're more wrong today than yesterday and more right the day after that. Like it's you know, it ebbs and flows, but some things are pretty theoretically sound as far as what they're supposed to do.
Right. People they got to learn how to just step back and think about it first. Just don't run off. Like, think about it first. And then you realize some of the mistakes that you may be making, but yeah.
And that's a whole process in and of itself.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's grassroots to change it though, because
Right.
those are things that are being bolstered by the people selling the equipment. And the people buying it don't necessarily know. I didn't know when I bought my first boxes and I'm getting a Faraday pouch. Oh, great, good for you. That's good. You don't know. You don't always know, but they're selling it as an accessory. That's like saying, here's your new Chevrolet. Would you like the flat tires to go with it?
Yeah.
We have flat tires. Why? It's like, I'm not going to go anywhere.
Exactly. Okay, let's I'm going to try pulling this one up this way, see if this plays any different doing it.
Hear me speak.
Could you hear that one better?
A little bit, yeah. If you want to play it again, go ahead. And then, despite the fact that that's one of our favorite ones, so Tony,
It is
that's
my
Tony's
favorite.
recording. Let him, yeah.
It's one of my favorites.
Let him speak to it, because that's really profound.
Okay, I'll go ahead and play it again.
How do you hear me speak?
So, we always said when we run Staticom, we never broadcast our voice. There are no mics. There are no amplification of the voice signal going out in any type of radio waves or anything. I'm speaking literally as if I was speaking to Cherie in the kitchen. It's just my voice. So then the next question that came to mind was, okay, if spirits don't have, I'm producing through my throat, larynx, literally physical sound waves. If they don't have the apparatus, ears, the 3D body to pick up that signal, how are they hearing me speak? And that was the response. We call it death. And I like that they refer to themselves as we. We call it death. Energy of the mind. That's the thing. And when you think back and you say, okay, well, how, when I'm doing an EVP session at a haunted location, how can I possibly get the answer before I've even completed my question?
Mm-hmm.
That's how.
That makes sense. How they know, because we get those responses a lot, but before we're finished with the question, or even in some instances, responses and stuff happen before you're even at a location in some instances.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And mind and brain are not synonymous, just to be clear. When they say energy of the mind, that supports what we also believe, that we're communicating with consciousness, and these vocals are excitations of consciousness.
Right.
They're what the field of subjectivity, which is reality is mental and it's intentional communication, then these are excitations of the field. The same way, if you see a ripple on a lake, it's not like the fist thing. It's not its own thing. It's a behavior of the field. It doesn't exist without the field. So this is communication that we would conceive through thought, because it's a behavior of the field of subjectivity that Tony's also a part of, being a conscious entity himself.
Right.
I'm just going to play that one more time, because that's as Sonia said, that's mind blowing.
How do you hear me speak?
And Ron made a very good point about what they're referring to as the mind, the brain, which science refers to, not the same thing. And there's a lot of times that we feel that when they do communicate with us, that they'll try to, I don't know what the right word is, but dumb it down so that we as humans can understand it. He could have went on and said, it's the energy, frequency, and vibration of the disembodied consciousness that's relating to, but they didn't. He used the word mind and just, let us interpret that how we can.
Wow. Let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and pull up this next one.
Can you stop talking and let spirits that are in this house answer our question? They're trying. Yeah, I heard. Okay, keep going, please, because I can hear a blessing. That was a yes. It sounded like. So again, this was also the Montgomery house. You can see Chris standing up against the wall. Ron sitting. I'm behind Ron. Audra's over there, and Lourdes, I think, is just off the camera angle that Cherie was shooting.
Yeah.
But there was a room behind me where I was sitting, and either before this was said or after, I can't remember, after, I think, I literally did feel something rush up behind me. And even Chris said he felt that there's something came up behind me. So it was funny that Staticom spit out, "Let's touch Tony." But again, though, my name again, and just, that's not normal and artifacts. Just everybody heard it.
They were trying to freak him out that night. First he saw something, and then that happened to him.
Well, that was going to be my other question. I was going to ask if you actually were touched.
I don't think I was actually touched, but I did feel them rush up behind me. And Chris said something. Maybe you guys remember better. I remember Chris going, something's behind you.
Yeah,
And I said, yeah, I know. I just felt it rush up on me. And I think I got up after that. I don't remember. But no, I don't ever remember actually being touched.
Okay, I'm going to play that one more time because when I upload them this way, they start really quick. So I'm going to play that one again.
Can you stop talking and let spirits that are in this house answer our question? They're trying. Yeah, I heard. Okay, keep going, please, because I can hear a blessing. That was a yes. It sounded like.
It's actually funny because after it says they're tricking me, I think I hear "yeah" with reason or something like that. Yeah.
There is something else there. I agree.
Yeah, I think it's "yeah" with reason. What'd you hear?
It's freezing.
We gotta review it. I think it says "yeah" with reason.
You might be right.
I'm like, there's something in there.
Yeah, there's definitely something. Okay, looks like we've got, let's see, 3 more right here.
Cool. Oh, I'm seeing James Brady said he has a Faraday bag.
Part of this house.
Whoops. What was that? Sorry.
I'm sorry. I didn't realize it was ready to go. He said he had a Faraday bag for his SB7 and he thought the same thing. Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's see here.
What's your favorite part of this house? What room?
Wow.
That was pretty clear.
Yeah, same place. Go ahead, Tony. You have the best explanation.
Again, Montgomery House again. All 6 of us are there. But Lourdes asked a very straightforward question. What's your favorite part of the house? We were expecting the study, the parlor, answer like that. This house was on something like 1,000 acres. And from where town actually was, cops, it would have taken them 3/4 of a day to ride out there. So the answer that they gave as far as timing and relevance fit the location perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
And so that timing and relevance always determines whether what we get fits. Did it come in a timely manner? Was it relevant to the question asked? Yes, all of that fit Lourdes' question perfectly. But was even information that we weren't even thinking of.
No.
We were trying to think of, okay, did they like the study? Did they like the part? What? So it was mind-blowing. And the clarity of that one is really good.
Yeah.
So it takes off the table that you are creating, if you're thinking of an answer, that you are creating that answer to come through, because really that's what I was looking for, the living room, the dining room. And this was completely out of the scope of what I was thinking, but still answered the question, timing and relevance. So
Yeah. I'll play that just one more time here.
What's your favorite part of this house? What room?
Wow.
And it's a cohesive thought. Like everything being said is part of the same explanation. It's not like they said, no
Right.
cops would love cereal. Here's the keys. I mean, it was not like some disjointed message. It was completely coherent.
Correct.
Yeah, like a whole conversation going
There you
on.
go. Chris Allgood and Audra Keeler from our team run that location masterfully, and this is a good explanation right here.
Yeah, servants also had control of the property and was a safe place for them and their children. Thanks, Chris. That's what we thought when we heard it.
Wow. Thank you, Chris. Okay. Pull this next one up here.
Function. Evaluation. Question. Shoreline. And money. That's.
Was that question for me? And could you repeat it, please? I heard, should I?
Should I be worried?
Yeah, maybe. So that was interesting for us because one of the things that Tony always says is that you can get so much information from the voices, like an EVP or even in direct radio voice or Staticom, and that sounds like a female with an English accent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep, sure does.
Yeah.
It's so clear.
So that was part of some of the clips are version 2.0 of Staticom, and I came up with the name 2.0 because Tony and I have been working for little breakthroughs back and forth, testing like crazy. I made an improvement that sounded like it cleaned up the sound pretty good, decent. He comes with try this, and I went, all right, that's 2.0. I probably had 1.2, which was an improvement. But he found something that really worked, which was, trust me when I tell you, it's like pulling a string on a sweater you wish you hadn't touched. Sometimes when you change something, it all starts coming unraveled. That's what messing with certain parts of this product or this components will do. One thing, a third through the chain, you touch it, it messes with everything else. So it was had to be a ton of work. But what he did was noticeable, and I went, this has to be a version upgrade as far as we have to call it something else because it's notable. And then we shared clips and people were like, oh, what'd you do? Yes. So that was a 2.0 recording. So that if you wanted proof of something I said earlier in the show when I said Team Rathman made a measurable difference from day one, there's one of them.
Because if you compare that one to the very first one we show you, that Staticom, you see the difference. It's a big difference.
Well, and like everyone's saying, I mean, that accent is super clear. That was one of the first things I noticed when I was listening to that one was that one, it was consistent.
First.
Yeah.
Like, go on.
And I love that they're asking you questions.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is
But you can also hear not only the accent, you can hear the emotional state of like, do I need to say my name? I mean, you can hear the expression in the voice that literally defines her state of mind, reason for asking. And she was absolutely serious. Do I need to give my name first before I start asking my question? Which, you know, like Ron was saying before, we had these voices analyzed by audio engineers. And one of the first things they came back and said was that the voices that are coming through Staticom elicit the same diphthongs, emotional responses, and everything that human voice does from a media that should have no voice data at all.
Yep.
Yeah, and you know that's why I would love to see what you all would get here at the jail, obviously with our distinct East Tennessee accents and dialect and such. But then if you go 20 miles over to our other location in historic Rugby, it was a British colony. I would love to see if those accents, because we get certain responses. They use the terminology and the words and stuff that you would have used in 1880s Britain, so it's it'd be cool to see if it came through like that. I'm going to play that one more time, and then we'll play the last one here.
Sure.
Was that question for me? And could you repeat it, please? I heard, should I?
I mean, it's just incredible.
It's wild. And one of the things that this is doing that we wanted to do, which was something I've noticed, and I told Tony since this 2.0 thing rolled out for us, is that it seems like every time we do a session now, you have at least a few moments of where it was clear you were engaged in a dialogue of something back and forth. Because I said, I heard, should I, was that question for me?
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't catch all of it, but I did catch some of it, and I did identify that it was a question. I think Jenny's correct. The emotion, the accent, and sounds like she's puzzled.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Agreed.
My type of lady, because I, too, was probably at that time quite puzzled.
But you're delicious.
Yeah.
All right. And then we've got one more here.
Can you guys hear us? We're able to now?
You can adjust that.
Yeah.
That was one of the first ones you got after we upgraded to 2.0, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yep, that's correct. And when I slowed it down to the repeating it part, I literally slowed it down 10 or 15%. It wasn't like a major slowdown, just to really emphasize how emphatic the words were spoken. It was so clearly enunciated.
Yeah.
There's a message there from, who was it from?
Oh,
A comment, I should say.
oh yeah. Have you captured that are non-English languages?
Yes. When we were doing multiple TDSI sessions with live audience, we had questions asked in Italian, Spanish, a Native American language, and one more.
Tagalog?
No, not at a
Latin.
session.
Latin.
Latin, it was Latin. Yeah.
Anyway, when the question was asked, and no one else in the room that I'm aware of knew the answer was repeated or given back through Staticom in the language it was asked.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep. So James Brady, and then the other one was Bob Burnell. So do you have the ability to change the tempo in live playback? That's in fact what we're doing. We're slowing down the flow of live white noise in real time. Obviously, if we do it too much, it's going, and if we do it too fast, it's going to sound like we're interviewing Alvin and the Chipmunks. So we tried to find something, and they're very hard to get. I've tried to get that interview. We're trying to do, I don't know why I say things. We're trying to do something that makes it intelligible and slowing it down enough, because they do come in faster than humans can speak, but not to the point that we distort it in any way. So it's slowed down to a certain degree, and that's one of the things that Tony and I will go back and forth about. Well, this amount, maybe that amount, this, and we'll in the fine tuning of it.
Correct.
That's part of it. The other question, if Tony wants to go first, Bob Burnell, that one. I'm not sure I understood the question exactly.
Well, the subliminal messages don't exist if you're saying within the white noise, because that's putting matter over mind. Remember, we create language. We're the ones that create the language. So if that's what you're saying, that the subliminal messages exist in the slow down signal within the white noise, is where you find the EVPs. I think that's what. But subliminal messages are something that we created. So that's
they would be put there.
Yeah, so that's kind of like saying matter over mind, not mind over matter. So we don't believe that it's subliminal messages that exist that slow down within
Correct. We believe more that it's a combination of the energy, frequency, and vibration, both of which is being sent by disembodied consciousness, laid over the energy, frequency, and vibration in the broadband white noise. And then Staticom literally separates, once it's elevated, one from the other, which allows you to hear the voice, which has now been manipulated for our own senses to understand it.
Right. And to speak to this from the philosophical point of view, I mentioned we have, through analytic idealism, a basis of reality, right? So if the message was coming in subliminally, couched into the white noise, if that's the ask or the suggestion of maybe what's happening, that would be a conscious experience in the same way breathing is. Now, you're not focusing on your breathing, you're not even thinking about it. It's just something you do as being a conscious being, right? But now that I mentioned it, you may be more aware of it. But otherwise, it's still a conscious experience, but it's not something that falls under what we call metaconscious, which is when you report back to yourself an awareness of having the experience, to know that you're experiencing something. Right. So that's why I would say this couldn't categorically be subliminal, because we not only know we're experiencing it through sensory input, not through receiving it and not realizing we're receiving it and going, I wonder, I think some reason we may have gotten these words. We're aware that we're doing it, and we're aware that we're aware that we're getting it. So it's metacognitive. We are both experiencing it and reflecting on the fact that we're experiencing it. So I think those two things alone takes subliminal off the table, because subliminal wouldn't work that way.
You don't even have to go that far, honestly, because it's a subliminal messages that means words, and words don't come before. It's not matter over mind. I mean, he's absolutely right, but from what under analytic idealism, there's not even a need to go that far.
I'm referring to speed or frequency with subliminal. It is there. We acknowledge it in our brain, but we are not aware of real time.
Bob, are you talking about really fast messages that come through? I mean, that would be the only connection I can make from what you're referring to, where until we slowed down live white noise, could we have picked up some of the information out of a message that we weren't even fully aware that we heard? Maybe. But if that's what you're referring to, then yeah, I mean, the speeds at which consciousness and subconsciousness function, you might have been able to get a feeling for something like what Ron heard when he realized after slowing it that it was his mother and grandmother. But I don't think the understanding outside of subliminally, he knew what was said until he slowed it down. Then his consciousness knew what was said.
Right. I don't know if perhaps if the idea was that even if it was, I don't think he's saying it's not spirit, but is it's, I don't know if he suggested, the question's a little bit vague, if he's saying that spirit subliminally couched within the noise, the message that we're receiving through referring to speed or frequency with subliminal. Like, I'm not, the question's not 100% clear, but just in general, if this helps answer it, I would take the whole subliminal thing off the table for reasons, just same location. For reasons that I said, is it's subliminal messaging is suggestive. It's not, you're not cognitive of the fact that you're experiencing a subliminal message. And if we're aware of the fact that we're hearing it, then we've both experienced it through sensory input, and then we've re-represented it to ourselves as having heard it again, which is metacognitive. So it's two steps away from being something that could be subliminal.
So do you find that, do you get both residual and intelligent responses on that, or do they seem to mostly just be intelligent?
We believe at the Shanley we got a lot of residual. Remember, it seemed like there was arguing going on between a man and a woman, but then you can hear like other people in there. But you can hear this man and woman argue like for a couple of minutes, and then it would kind of stop and then kind of start over again. It would start over again. So we believe that we've gotten residual voices coming through. I mean, I don't know how that happens, but we have. It sounded residual.
Yeah.
Because they weren't paying attention to us. It was just like, I mean, unless they were really arguing with themselves, but I mean, I don't know. It sounded residual.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's possible, and I'm sure we've probably gotten some too, but the majority of them are definitely intelligent.
I agree.
When you can ask for specifics, when you can put out, hey, can you say my wife's name? And they say it, that's not residual.
Right.
So could residual still come through? Sure, it could. Would we know the difference unless there was only one voice speaking and it was residual? We would know by every time we asked a question, no answer would ever come through. Yeah. So the challenging part is literally the difference between how many voices are coming through, how many of them are answering the question, and which one isn't. And determining that is the most difficult process. But getting a residual voice, that I believe absolutely can happen.
Yeah, because we weren't sure. It sounded residual, but we didn't know if they were actually just talking amongst themselves, and it sounded like they were arguing. We weren't sure, but it sounded like it could have been residual.
Yeah.
But I agree with everyone else. We do get a lot. It's more intelligent voices that we get.
Yeah, I can understand that. So what's next for Staticom?
3.0, 4.0, sleepless nights for Rathman. Move, Rathman, develop.
You know, that question does get asked a lot, but the bottom line is, and the four of us have talked about this many times, is we don't know what the limitations of Staticom are. We have not pushed the boundary long enough to know that yet. That will probably take years of research yet. But questions come up. Okay, you know, people always ask, do you know who you're speaking to? Do we always know it's spirits? We don't. Could it be extraterrestrials? Could it be multidimensional? Where are the boundaries of where Staticom falls off? We don't know that. We know that the majority of the time they will identify themselves as spirit or consciousness or whatever your term definition is for it. We always refer to it as consciousness. But to know where Staticom is going to go partially is defined by where we know its limitations are. And because we don't know those, it's literally an open book as to where it'll be tomorrow, next month, next year, or years after.
I like that. And if people want to hear more about this or hear some of your lectures or even, you know, watch, do you all do live Staticom sessions and such?
We have, Tony and I have both gone on Facebook Live and then broadcast it, and then you get people in the chat, and then a lot of times what's really cool is that 6-7 people will type in the same response that they heard
right
at the same time, so you get a lot of confirmation at the same time. So we've done that a lot. We are working on a way to be able to do it like on a show like this where we could actually run it live on a broadcast, but due to computer resources running both Staticom and the browser with StreamYard, and with the way StreamYard channels the audio, we're trying to find a way that it will do it so that it does Staticom clean as its own channel. Otherwise, we get a lot of like chirping sounds from like reverb or the sounds echoing, and it just gets a little bit messy. See, Chad Thomas in the chat said multiple people here to confirm it. Yeah, and Chad's been with us both at live events and on a lot of the Facebook lives that we've done. So we're working on a way to be able to do it on a live broadcast like this to share, because a lot of people ask. But right now, we stick to showing the clips because we don't want to represent it in a way that sounds like, are they sure? Because it really does muddy it.
Right, because he thought all along it was sounding just fine, because to him it did. But then when you watched it, it's like not a proper representation of what Staticom
Yeah, the
is.
podcast and Staticom were coming through the same speaker I heard from the show. So at the moment, it sounded okay to me, and it seemed like everybody during the show, this one time I did it not that long ago, and then I watched it back on the replay when that sounds horrible.
But they were hearing stuff, so to them it sounded great. But for us, it's like
it was a step back
something's
for us.
wrong. Yeah.
No, it's the same way doing live investigations. When you're essentially running something through another filter and adding other variables to create potential pareidolia, if you will, whether it be audio or visual. We had the same problem when we were doing the lives in season 6. It's like, because you're broadcasting over that live, people might see something, they're seeing pixelation. People might hear something, they may be hearing something. So whenever you're playing through that extra filter, I guess, of StreamYard and then Facebook on top of that, it changes everything.
Right.
It can. It just needs to be.
It's more of a matter of just the processor power it takes. Both Ron and I had to upgrade to the most recent computers out there in order to get the upgrade to run efficiently. And to add a streaming service on top of that is just too much for one computer.
Yeah, I can understand that. So so go ahead. We've got in the show notes, we've got your pages where people can watch your podcast. They can also follow on your individual websites. But go ahead and plug that, just so that if people want to find out more and dig in a little bit deeper, they can go ahead and do that.
Sure.
Well, I was gonna do the expos and stuff like that. You can do
all right. So go ahead, do the expos and stuff.
Oh, all right. Well, expos, we have a couple coming up. We have the Pennhurst Paracon Expo. We have Gettysburg Bash. We have then Mass Paracon, and then New Jersey Paraunity Expo, and then the Hanover Tavern Paracon. And there you can see Staticom, because we will be presenting Staticom there.
Thank you for pulling that up. Yeah. Because, so Hanover, for example, we do every January. So that one just passed.
Yeah, it's going to be next.
So it's not an upcoming.
No, but I'm mentioning all the, and then I know Tony and Cherie have a couple of cons too that are coming up. So, but if you want to do the, like, I don't know, they can do their
Red Millen with Daryl Marston, and then there's Get Haunted doing a 2-day trifecta: UFO, Bigfoot, cryptids, paranormal stuff at the Shanley Hotel with Ronnie LeBlanc from Expedition Bigfoot. And then she mentioned that there's Pennhurst also.
I think I covered them up.
And then we're doing doing Festival of the Unexplained in the UK. Lourdes and I are going out. We tried desperately to get the whole team to go out, but they cover everything, and they're bringing out a lot of people from a few different places. So we're going out in September from the 19th to the 22nd to lecture, do panel discussions, and present Staticom over in the UK, which is kind of cool because direct radio voice that we started with, that influenced everything we're doing, has its roots in Europe. So it's kind of like a homecoming for the methodology.
Yeah, it's kind of cool to have that. And then I know Tony and Cherie have a couple of stuff going on, right?
Yeah, they have 2 big Paracons coming up.
We're just waiting for you to wrap yours up. Okay, that was the hint, I guess. So yeah, we have the Globe Paracon coming up in 3 or 4 weeks. Yes. After that, we got the Tombstone Paracon in Tombstone, Arizona. Tombstone is April 26th to the 28th. The Globe Paracon is April 12th and 13th. And then we've got a bunch of other, if you liked what you heard tonight, you want to see more as things will progress, we've got all sorts of different shows that will be explaining different pieces of Staticom. Excuse me. So keep an eye out for those. If you ever see something called TDSI, either on the East Coast or the West Coast for Cherie and I, definitely check that out. You will get to hear this run live. You can ask your own questions and you can get your own answers. And I can tell you that watching clips is great and fascinating, but when you hear it live, when you're right in front of it, You can't beat that. You just can't.
It's nothing like it.
Yeah.
And then what about the websites, Tony? Because you're good at saying all the websites and things like that.
You can find Staticom on entityvoices.com. You can find it on GonyakParanormal.com. Did I say that right, Ron?
Yep.
GonyakParanormal.com? Yep.
Mhm.
Okay.
Not yet.
You can find it under Tony Rathman on Facebook. You can find it under, remind me what your Facebook pages are, Ron. Yeah, that's the website, Entity Voices. There's a Staticom tab right up on top,
Yep.
Which will take you to, there's clips, there's photos of presentations, there's descriptions of what it is. Ron has something up similar too on GonyakParanormal.com.
Yeah.
We have a YouTube channel called, basically it's just called Staticom. If you go to YouTube, type in Staticom, it'll say Staticom by Ron, Lourdes, Cherie, and Tony. There's a bunch of clips there. They're also on Entity Voices Paranormal Investigation clips. If you Google, just plain go to Google and put in Staticom, it'll literally bring up a plethora of information about where you can find additional clips, information from every source it's out on.
And then on Entity Voices Paranormal Evidence podcast that we have on Monday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it's 7 p.m. you guys time, right? I think I get confused.
Yeah, on the
Well, it'll change
10th.
in 2 days.
Yeah.
Well, there we usually showcase guests with their evidence, but every once in a while we'll showcase our stuff, and you can catch it, Staticom there at times too.
Oh, and last but not least, if you really want to see how Staticom developed from stage one to where it is, go on Paraflix and look up the 3-part docuseries, Knowingly Talking to the Unknown.
Yeah. And also, just to clarify, if we hadn't, TDSI is the Digital Seance Initiative, which is live Staticom events that are conducted like a seance for the purposes of having everybody kind of cohesive and focused and paying attention, and not running around opening snacks and making coffee, which will happen at a ghost hunt if you don't have it structured for people to be paying attention, or so we found. Also, we had just found that the UFO and Paranormal Museum in Pine Bush, New York, is not only going to have in their paranormal area where they have EVP stuff, an exhibit part with a video of Staticom and the four of us showcasing what it is we do, which we're excited about. They're also going to have a piece of video from the Phelps Dodge Hospital in Ajo, Arizona, that Tony and Cherie captured, of shadow figures walking in the middle of the hallway, which for me is unparalleled in video evidence of anything I have seen. Now, I've been in the field for 12, 13 years, so I'm not by no stretch a multi-year veteran. But I've seen some stuff, and I've seen people's captures, and that thing is just, it's the brass ring. And it's going to be part of the guided and self-guided tour at that same museum in Pine Bush, New York, which, like Roswell, is a UFO hotspot in the States. So that will be something people will be able to watch and witness. And Tony and Cherie did a great job setting up the clip for the video that the museum's going to run. It's really cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We owe that to you, though, Ron. You're the one who got that in there. Not the Staticom thing. We all did that. But, yeah, the shadow figure, I would have never thought of that either. But thank you. Thank you very much.
Nice.
Well, museum.
Well, it sounds like you all have so much going on, and that there's so many different ways that people can follow what you're doing, and hopefully catch you guys live and be able to experience this in person. So thank you all so much for coming on tonight, taking the time. I know we've gone a little bit longer, but I mean, with that evidence, it's just, like I said, mind-blowing, and I could talk to you guys for the rest of the evening.
It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for having us.
You.
It was. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
That's very kind. Thank you, Marianne. And Bob, great questions. We always appreciate the questions. It sparks thoughts.
That's right.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nope.
Yeah. Never apologize for asking questions, because that's
that's what you're supposed to do.
That's how you learn.
Exactly. And I love the interaction. We've got the best people that watch every week, and they tune in, they ask great questions and have great conversation. And so we really appreciate you guys spending the time, taking the time to do that, because I know that time is one of the most precious things that we have, and spending it watching the show and interacting with us is something that's a true honor and very special. So thank you all. Next week, I want to make sure that I get this right. Next week, we've got a great guest. We've got Miss Dee Dee with Dream Interpretation. She's been on the show before. We've been on her show. She also does Haunted Hour and used to be part of Paranormally Blonde. So she's going to be on. We're going to be talking dreams next week. So we look forward to having Miss Dee Dee on, and look forward to, again, following what you guys have going on and seeing how things progress.
Thank you again for having me.
So much.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much, and we will see you next week.